Welcome back to Never Did It. I'm Brad Garoon, and I'm here with Jake Ziegler. On Never Did It, we look back at the last 100 years of movies in an effort to fill in some of our movie blind spots. Today, we're looking at just one movie, and then we're looking at 28 movies. We're looking at Inside Out 2, and then ranking every one of... well, look, we've seen all the Pixar movies, so we're ranking all of them. Excuse my temper, but I'm having marble mouth today, and it's quite frustrating. Jake, let's start with Inside Out 2. You just saw it. I just saw it. Mm-hmm. What did you think of it?
I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. I think there was some really, really good things about it. Certainly nowhere near as high quality as the first one. I think the first one, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So not as good as the first one, but I think it's a pretty good sequel, and I liked quite a bit about it. I saw it with both my wife, and my daughter is that age that Riley is. She's just about to turn 12, so it's pretty timely in our house, and we all enjoyed it. I overall had a good time with it. A few minor quibbles with it, but I did like some of the new characters quite a bit, while some of them were left less of an impression.
What did Viv think about Inside Out 2 versus Inside Out? Did she say she liked more? What were her feelings?
Yeah, she likes Inside Out 2 more, but I mean, she literally always likes the last movie that she saw more than the other movies that she's seen. So, maybe I can ask her again in a little while, but she did really enjoy this one. But yeah, she's a 12-year-old girl. She has a great deal of anxiety as well. So, I mean, a lot of the movie hit home with her. But one thing that I thought was really smart, she's getting pretty smart with movies too, where we were talking about the characters. She asked me today, she goes, "Who was your least favorite character?" And I said, well, I didn't really dislike any of the characters. And she was, Envy didn't really do anything. I was like, you're right. Envy didn't really do anything. So she was pretty perceptive of that. And that was one of the complaints with the movie. I mean, Envy was just kind of superfluous to the plot, whereas obviously Anxiety had a huge impact on the plot, and Embarrassment, who I thought was a really great character, Embarrassment had a great deal to do with the plot. And that, but yeah, Envy was, I mean, not bad or anything. We're not talking like Jar Jar or anything like that, but just kind of didn't really do much for the story.
Right. I don't think it's going to ruin Ayo Edebiri's career or anything like it did with Jar Jar, but no, that was in my Letterboxd review, actually. I think Envy and Ennui both were there for the sake of, I don't know, selling toys maybe, or just like with Ennui, it was a gag and a plot convenience to have the iPad business. We're spoiling parts of Inside Out 2. These are not important plot points of Inside Out 2, but yeah, I didn't like either of those characters. Ennui gave us one or two good jokes, but not a ton in the way of character development. And like you said, not like Anxiety, who was the character. Like, this really could have been a movie just about Anxiety joining the group. They found stuff for Embarrassment to do, but you could have found another way to do that. Probably more interesting ways to do that, like maybe leaving anger behind and him siding with Anxiety and then deciding at the end to side with Sadness.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I guess we are really spoiling Inside Out. But yeah, Anxiety was great. Yeah, Envy, really not much to do. You probably have her because Ayo Edebiri is everywhere now, and with good reason. She's amazing. She's great in The Bear. She's great in Theater Camp. She's great in her YouTube video with Rachel Sennett. She's just great.
I saw her just on, it was Kimmel or Fallon on one of the talk shows the other day, and he asked, can you tell us anything about The Bear? No spoilers, of course, but can you tell us about the upcoming season? And just immediately, I don't know if she had it prepared or not, but it felt like she came up with it just right offhand. So I'm gonna assume that was the case. Oh yeah, we're doing this whole crossover with Shogun. Where Carmi gets like knocked out, and then he starts seeing all the characters, and they're like interacting with us, and are like, don't worry, it'll make sense when you see it and everything. And it was just like really funny, and it was like, I just like you so much, and I want to see you in everything. And then I saw her in Inside Out 2. I was like, maybe not everything, but I still like you.
She for sure had that in her pocket. That is not something she made up on the spot, but that is awesome. We've just started watching Shogun. It's incredible.
I've heard it's great. Yeah, it's on our long list.
And I get that because it takes you years to watch anything, and we're already behind. Like, everyone I try to talk to about it has seen it and is tired of talking about it. So
no,
bummer for us. So I didn't like it quite as much as you. I thought this was a good Pixar movie, not a great Pixar movie. For instance, when I went to the theater to see Elemental last year, I was very angry the entire time I was watching it. I thought it was pretty bad. If nothing else, really uninspired, just wrote stuff. Looked kind of cool, but not breaking any new ground animation-wise. And neither did this, but Inside Out 2 also looked great. Whereas I was watching this show on Max, and I know that you have liked Aqua Teen in the past, so I think you should give this show a try because it's in the same vibe. It's called Smiling Friends. It is unhinged, but even Smiling Friends, which is 2D animated and pretty rough and raw, is doing stuff with mixed media that you actually saw a little bit of in Inside Out 2, like with Pouchy and with
I like that. Yeah.
Elemental had nothing like that. It was just It's just we're doing Pixar animation in like a cool way because it's non-human characters, so everyone didn't look like they have in the previous 3 Pixar movies. But the story was pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. And I also lost my earbuds during the screening, so I was mad by the time I left, and I didn't feel that way at all. In fact, I walked out of Inside Out 2 thinking this was a 4-star movie. And then I talked to my wife about it, and as we're talking, I'm like, this is not quite a 4-star movie. Mostly because, and I think I wrote this in my Letterboxd review too, it kind of felt like an expansion pack. Like rather than break any real new ground, they didn't visit any like cool new places in the mind except for the vault, which was visually nothing because it's a vault, right? It's just blackness. Or the stream of consciousness, which was just a river with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs foods in it. Or the back of the mind, which was just a pile of memories.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, good movies, both of them.
Yeah, totally. They're also over 10 years old. I mean, they're old.
Yeah.
When I'm seeing all these things that were so innovative in the first movie, like all these amazing illustrations of what goes on in your mind, so creative, kind of like taken down a few notches into, yeah, this is clever, but not as visually arresting as they were in the first movie. I found that a little disappointing. Now, keep in mind, it was never going to be as good as Inside Out 1. It's a 5-star movie for me. I think it's incredible. I did think, I don't want to say it felt rushed because it didn't. The story makes sense. The story works. Riley's story is more interesting, though, than what's going on inside the mind in this one. And that, to me, I think betrayed a little bit of, we don't have a lot of great ideas for how to make this much more than a solid teen movie.
Well, like Inside Out 1.5 than Inside Out 2.
Right. In fact, Riley's first date.
I loved that. I think it's a great little short.
It's good, but it has much more in common with Inside Out 2 than it does with Inside Out 1, where like this kind of feels like a stretched out short. But it's not bad. I enjoyed my time at the movies, and everyone in my theater was into it. The jokes were funny. Kyle MacLachlan, I think, had the best bit where they zoomed into his head and he was just like resigned to whatever was happening with his cranky daughter. But I was the last thing I'll say about it that's critical is I found myself, especially in the beginning of the movie, wondering, was Tony Hale in the first one? I thought it was Bill Hader.
It is Bill Hader.
No, I know. But like what I'm thinking, like this is what's occupying my mind. Like, that's not Mindy Kaling. Who is that? And is that Kyle MacLachlan? It kind of doesn't sound like him. It was. So I found myself being like, oh, the voices, and also like not knowing that it was Maya Hawke or Ayo Edebiri.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Like racking my brain to figure out who they were.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not a great sign when you're spending more time thinking about who's doing the voice work than engaging with the story. But I was never bored. It's one of those things where after the fact, I was like, this didn't do as much for me as the first one did, which obviously had me bawling. Like, just a wreck.
Yeah.
In the theater.
I mean, the first one sets a really high bar.
Yeah.
I still landed on 4 stars for the second one. I did like it, a little bit more than you. I do think, as far as animation, they did one really cool thing. And again, we've spoiled this much of the movie so far, and with obviously we've talked about anxiety being such a main character. Obviously, that builds up to a big animated sequence where the anxiety finally takes over the whole thing. And I thought that was really cool and like a really good illustration of what that feels like and what a visual representation of what it is. And I thought that was really neat. And that was maybe the one like kind of centerpiece, maybe new idea that they had, and that was a good. It came at the right time in the movie too. Like I feel like they kind of finished strong with some of that, so that maybe why I left, with maybe a higher feeling of it. So I felt they kind of stuck the landing.
I think that tracks. In fact, I'll say everything that happened in the front of the mind was really interesting. I especially liked when she first goes through puberty, and no matter what the emotions do, just like barely touching the thing makes her go crazy and they think it's broken. And that's a great representation of what having new feelings, like everything being amped up, really feels like. I thought that was really well done.
That's a good bit.
One of the funniest visual gags was creating the stick and just like trying to barely touch the console with the stick. That was really funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, like I said, huge improvement over Elemental, a step back from Inside Out 1. And we'll get more into this in a second as we go through ranking our Pixar movies. I would say in terms of a Pixar sequel, it's pretty successful compared to other Pixar sequels that aren't Toy Story 2 and 3.
Right.
Most Pixar sequels are disappointing, which is a bummer because it looks like after Elio, the next one, we're getting a lot of sequels.
Oh, are we?
Maybe it's more Disney Animation is doing nothing but sequels going forward, which I think is the case, but it might be the case for Pixar too. At the very least, the next one's an original, so that's good.
Okay, well, at least we've got that to look forward to.
Do you want to go through our rankings?
Yeah, how do you want to do it? Do you want to do like Bing Bang, or do you want?
Okay, you know what? Why don't you start from the bottom, and I'll I'll say where the movie you chose landed on my list and why.
Okay.
Hit me with your number 28.
Number 28 is the lone one that I have ranked at 2.5 stars. Everything else I have ranked a little higher than that. And I know we're going to disagree right off the bat because my number 28 is Cars 2.
Okay, Cars 2 is the best Cars. I'm in the minority. So yes. You have it. You have the consensus opinion of Cars 3. For reference, I have 3 movies at 2.5 stars. Cars 3 is not one of them. I have Cars 3 at 3.5 stars. And it's in the number 22 spot. So it's not super high.
Cars 2, you mean?
I do mean Cars 2. It's not super high. It's still in the lower third. Tell us why you don't like it, and then I'll talk about why I like it.
Mostly what I remember about it, and I haven't seen it in quite a while, probably since my kid was little. It's a lot of Larry the Cable Guy, and his whole shtick just kind of grates on me. I like some of the spy elements of it. I think there's some cool stuff in it, and it's animated again. Like a lot of Pixar movies, the animation is really cool, and like the locations are really cool. I think it's really just a lot of Larry the Cable Guy, and that just I tune that out after a while, and I can't do it.
So I was thinking about this today because I knew this was going to come up, and I have 2 thoughts about why I like Cars 2. One is, the reason I like Cars 2 so much more than most other Pixar sequels, not so much more, obviously, but what Cars 2 is doing more than I like what other Pixar sequels is doing. Whereas I said, Inside Out 2 kind of feels like an expansion pack to Inside Out. And The Incredibles 2 just feels like the next issue of The Incredibles. And Finding Dory, I don't know what the hell's going on. We'll talk about that in a minute.
But, not long from now.
Yeah, really, definitely not.
Yeah.
But Cars 2 is very different from Cars 1, right? Cars 1 is about racing. Cars 2 is sort of about racing, but it's really the spy story. Okay, so that's number 1. I thought that was cool that they went a different direction. The second thing that I really liked about Cars 2 is that the reason I don't think the Larry the Cable Guy piece bothers me as much as it bothers you is I was a huge Ernest guy growing up. I loved the Ernest movies. Now, I haven't seen any of these in a long time, so I might hate them. But I doubt it, because nostalgia, as we learned at Inside Out 2, is very powerful.
That was a cute bit, too. I kind of forgot about that one. But yeah, that was a really funny little bit.
I like that they kept telling her to go away. But if it wasn't for the cynicism of having Mater be essentially the new main character of Cars 2 because he's popular with little kids and probably sold a lot of toys, I might like Cars 2 even more. But I just really appreciate that this was pretty early on. I think it was only the second franchise that got a sequel. Obviously, Toy Story 2 is their third movie.
I think you're right, yeah.
I don't think anything else came before Cars 2. And they really bucked what happened in the first one. And then they went right back to it for Cars 3. Cars 3 is just like a more boring version of Cars 1, which we'll get to when you get to wherever it is on your list. So for that reason, it's 3.5 stars for me at number 22. I know most people don't agree, and I'm sure a lot of people are really annoyed by Larry the Cable Guy. He's annoying, but I like it.
All right, well, that'll bring us to, let's keep talking about Cars, because I actually have Cars 1 at number 27. I have it at 3 stars. I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I just think it's really long. It's like over 2 hours, and even some of Pixar's best movies, like we're looking at, your Finding Nemo's or whatever, are only, 90-something minutes. There's literally no reason for Cars to be over 2 hours. It's just over long, and the story is just kind of blah. And, again, lots of Larry the Cable Guy. Owen Wilson is, whatever. I like Paul Newman in it. Of course, Paul Newman's voice is going to be welcome in, any movie that he's in. So I don't hate Cars particularly. I just think it's pretty okay. It's just an okay movie. 3 stars.
So I also gave it 3 stars. It's number 24 on my list. I don't love it. My Letterboxd review just says Cars is fine. I don't really have anything to say about it. I was going to say the exact same thing. It's notable because it's one of Paul Newman's last performances, and that's it. And people like to say ka-chow, and that's where it comes from. But
oh yeah,
I think in general people felt, and I know I felt when I saw Cars back in 2006. This is Pixar. Like, this is what they're doing now? Felt like a drop-off. So, yeah, it's number 24 for me.
Well, it was a drop. I mean, it came on the heels of, we had Nemo, Incredibles, Cars. It was like, yeah, it was just a big disappointment.
All right, well, what's your number 26?
Number 26, we're sticking in the 3-star territory. I have The Good Dinosaur. This movie was just kind of, I think, stuck in developmental hell for a while, and it took a lot to get made and went through a lot of different incarnations, I think. And again, it's not a bad movie or anything. It's okay. It kind of feels like a made for we used to say made for video, made for TV or straight to DVD, but now it'd be like a straight to streaming. Like if this was a straight to streaming Disney Plus movie, I'd be like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. But as like a big theatrical Thanksgiving release, it was pretty meh. Jeffrey Wright, Frances McDormand are voices in it. That's great. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just it's a pretty forgettable movie.
I don't understand why this was a Western, or why a Western and dinosaurs was like the idea that brought these things together. This one also, like you said, it was in developmental hell. It was originally going to be directed by one of the like main Pixar creatives, and then they got pulled off for something else. And then Peter Sohn wound up taking over. And his movies are, I don't like them because the other one is Elemental, and I've already talked about how I don't like Elemental. Yeah. I just don't think he's good at the helm of things. He's a great voice actor, and he's probably a good animator. But I don't think the movies he's made are particularly good. I think this one's visually very boring. I think the characters are annoying. I really don't like the main character. It's just like, why was a Western a dinosaur movie and vice versa? I don't really understand what they were doing here. It didn't work. It's my number 27.
Oh, wow. Number 25, promised we would talk about it soon. I'm still in 3.5 star territory, although I feel like I might have overrated this one, is Finding Dory. Just a huge letdown from Finding Nemo, which is outstanding. We'll get to that later. Finding Dory is just, again, like you said about Cars 2, where they really switched up what they were doing. Finding Dory kind of did that, but they did it in a really dumb way, where it was like, in the first movie, they're, fish that are like swimming around in the sea and like dealing with fish stuff, like fish problems, like how to escape out of an aquarium. And in Finding Dory, they're driving semi-trucks, like, no, wrong direction, like too far in the opposite direction. And I was kind of taken out of it.
So it's funny because that's my favorite part of the movie, because Ed O'Neill is the best part of Finding Dory, like by a wide margin. He's the octopus. But I agree with you in that what they changed up was a huge mistake. And like you said, they're in the sea. They're doing fish stuff. It's beautiful. The colors are deep and rich, and the characters are really interesting. And now they're stuck in an aquarium, and everything's kind of muted color palette. They're dealing with domesticated fish stuff, which is boring. So it doesn't have any of the charm of the original. I felt like Albert Brooks didn't really know what he was doing in this one, like almost like they didn't give him the right amount of direction. It was the Ellen Show. And it was funny because my family was obsessed with Finding Nemo. My mom especially was like such a Dory head. And so when the movie was going to be Finding Dory, we were like, oh, this is going to be my mom's movie. And then it just disappointed the hell out of everyone. So I have that pretty low too. I have it at 3 stars. I don't think it's overrated at 3 stars, but it's my number 25. I mean, we're still real low for me.
So yeah, we have it in the same spot.
Yeah.
That brings us to 24. For me, that's Cars 3, which I also have at 3.5 stars. I remember liking it more than the other ones. Again, been a while since I've seen it. I kind of liked the new characters that they had in there, the female race car drivers. I like stories of like old prize fighters, giving way to the young, the Rocky type storyline. I'm usually a sucker for that. It worked for me. Again, I don't remember a whole lot of it. I was just, looking at my rankings. I had it at 3.5 stars, and I know I liked it more than Finding Dory, so I had to put it above Dory.
It's my number 28. It's my least favorite Pixar movie. To me, it's just like a retread of Cars, and I didn't like Cars. And my review of it was, you've seen the I Think You Should Leave sketch where the guy says, you have no good car ideas. I was like, yeah, Pixar has no good car ideas. And Paul Newman was dead, so his character had died. What are we even doing anymore?
No Paul Newman, no buys.
I was under the impression by the trailer, too, that this was going to be a little bit of an edgier version of Cars, because they show this big crash in the trailer. And then the movie doesn't make good on that at all.
No.
All right, we'll keep this going.
All right, 23, another disappointing sequel, Monsters University. Again, perfectly fun movie. Billy Crystal and John Goodman are great. I enjoy them. There's some funny bits in the movie, but it just kind of underwhelms. Again, Monsters, Inc. is such a high-quality movie with some just really great bits in it and a really interesting story. And Monsters University, it kind of takes away the relationship between Boo and Sully is kind of the core of Monsters, Inc. The Wazowski and Sully relationship, of course, is good too, but, the younger version of them is not as interesting as the older version of them. And it's just a fun movie, but I certainly think it's obviously in the lower part of the Pixar canon and not a great sequel, but it's fine.
So funny, we have this rated the same. I also have this at 3.5 stars, but I have it up at number 16.
Oh, wow.
I think this is one of the more surprisingly great to look at Pixar movies. The color palette reflects the mood of the characters, and when the characters start to become very sullen as they're losing to the jerk fraternity, there's really much more detail on the texture and less on the oversaturated color. It's really interesting. I don't think prequels belong in what Pixar is doing. It's a way less interesting story than Monsters Inc. So that's a problem. Although I did think it was kind of funny. Like, I love Dave Foley. I'm really glad they were able to get him in the movie. His character's very funny. Yeah, a lot of it feels really superfluous, and I just don't believe the story. Like, I don't believe that Mike and Sully didn't like each other in this way, given what we know about them in the sequel. It didn't feel narratively realistic. But it looks so good sometimes. And I just have to give it credit for that because I'm such an animation nerd.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot like old school. You know, the fraternity has to fight the mean fraternity, or they have to overcome the whatever to keep their fraternity or something.
I went to a screening, a neighborhood screening of Breaking Away recently. And in that movie, the townies have to challenge the Indiana University kids for goodwill because they got into a fight at a bowling alley. And because it's actually Indiana University and actually the city of Bloomington, the university couldn't be portrayed as evil as they usually are in movies. And it was such an interesting change of pace. Like, the dean's not mean. He's the one who facilitates this race. But yeah, usually it's like Revenge of the Nerds and Animal House and Old School and Monsters University for some reason.
Yeah. Then we're up to number 22. I have Lightyear. We're still in 3.5-star territory for me. I think Lightyear's a cool movie. I think that the hissy fit that people threw online about it, that, Tim Allen's not in it and not my Buzz Lightyear and, all this other nonsense, I think was one of the dumbest, lamest freakouts that people had. Lightyear's a totally solid movie. They kind of ripped off a big part of the Interstellar storyline. I'm okay with spoiling Lightyear because I think anybody who has wanted to see it would have already seen it by now. But yeah, they kind of ripped off that big part of Interstellar. But there's some cool action sequences in it. Some of the animation is really cool. Chris Evans, is an action hero. He's kind of got that thing down. He could do that probably in his sleep. Yeah, totally solid movie. That's my number 22. Yep, still 3.5 stars.
I also gave it 3.5 stars. I think Lightyear is good, actually. It's my number 14. It's my second from the highest 3.5 star Pixar movie. When I was watching it, I was thinking about these hissy fits. People were also mad that there was a lesbian relationship in it. Grow up.
Oh, right. See, I forgot about that.
Absurd that people would be mad.
It takes up about a second and a half of screen time.
Sorry that something that happens in real life happened in a movie. Get over it. All I could think was, like, what do people want from a Pixar movie? Now, it's funny because I say that about this, but I feel the opposite about Inside Out 2. Because if Inside Out 1 didn't exist, I'd probably think Inside Out 2 was a 4-star movie. But Inside Out 1 and all these amazing 5-star Pixar movies exist, which we'll get to soon. Whereas when I'm watching Lightyear, I'm like, what do you guys want from a Pixar movie? What do you want from an animated movie? You keep saying, like you said, it's not up to the Pixar standard. Pixar is not a genre. It's a studio, right? Animation's not a genre. It's an art form. This is a good science fiction movie. Is it a great one? No, but it's good. Is the twist dumb? Not good. Actually, no, I don't think it is. I think the twist is kind of cool.
Yeah,
so,
totally agree.
So it's my number 14. I think Lightyear is remarkably underrated. I don't think it's like a great movie that people have to see. I think it's another one of those cynical things where, like, with Mater and Cars 2 and Buzz Lightyear, this is like the narrative circle you have to do to get to what the movie is in the Toy Story franchise. I think it was silly for them to even try to explain it. Like, I wish they had just put the movie out there and just let it be Lightyear. But so the opening crawl I didn't like.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I'm pretty up on Lightyear.
Get to the end of the 20s here. Number 21, I have Brave. Still at 3.5 stars. Again, really good movie. There's some really good bits in here. Some of the animation, again, with the close-ups of the arrows and the path that they take is really, really neat. I like Mumford and Sons, so there's some fun songs in there. Good movie, just kind of falls short of the classic status. I think the story is a little kind of well-trodden territory. I watched it also a lot when my kid was little, and it's just one of those that doesn't hold up to a lot of repeat viewings, where it's like, it's good. It's very good. Obviously, I'm going to have it ranked above quite a few things, so I do enjoy it. But yeah, it's just very good.
So I have it at number 23 at 3 stars. When I first saw this, it was 4 stars. To your point about repeat viewings, I watched it for a second time in 2023 and thought, Pixar didn't have human faces down yet. And I found that really distracting. I was like, they're almost where they want to be with this, but not quite. So yeah, for me, it falls a little short. Looks a little bit more dated than most Pixar movies. You watch an old Disney animated movie or a DreamWorks movie from the early aughts, they look bad. Like Shrek looks like garbage, the original Shrek. Oh, we should do a DreamWorks ranking when I finish watching all those. This is one of the only examples of Pixar animation looking dated. This and maybe A Bug's Life. But beyond that, it's tough to come by. So for that reason, for me, it's number 23, 3 stars.
Mm-hmm. All right, and now we're going to fight, and I'm going to preface this by saying I've only seen this movie one time. It was last year on Father's Day with my child, and it was Elemental. So that's my number 20, and we've already reached, for me, I'm in the 4-star territory, so I gave this movie 4 stars, and I remember really liking it, and that's why it's at number 20 for me. I haven't seen it since then, so I haven't had a chance to, like, re-rank it or reevaluate it.
I've already crapped on it a bunch. I'm not going to say more. I'll just say I gave it 2.5 stars. It's my number 26. I said it felt like they wrote this thing with a hammer and edited it in a blender. The animation is cool, but not breaking new ground. And I just think the story stinks. I just think it stinks.
I should rewatch it. I mean, legit, I should rewatch it. I mean, each Pixar movie should probably be viewed at least twice. I think that's
I was
fair.
shocked when you gave it 4 stars. And granted, you saw it in a good mood. I saw it in a bad mood. But I was shocked. I was like, I cannot trust Jake anymore.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. Like, really, any movie that I see in the theater with my kid, I mean, you could probably deduct half a star at least and go from there.
All right, fair enough.
So, yeah, moving onward to number 19.
But not to Onward.
Yes, it is Onward for me. Yeah. Yeah, that's my number 19. I gave it 4 stars. Again, I'm still in the 4-star territory here. I think Tom Holland and Chris Pratt are both good at animation voices. I mean, Chris Pratt has, Lord knows, done it enough where he should be good at it by now. But I think it's an interesting story. They did some cool stuff with, like, the magic element. I don't remember any other Pixar movie doing anything kind of like that, what they did with that story. So I thought there was some cool stuff in there. It also came out at just the worst possible time. I think it's kind of been... I don't know if it's been forgotten. I'm obviously a terrible judge at that after my my faux pas the other night with It Comes at Night. I have no idea what's been forgotten or what hasn't, but Onward, I know, definitely came out at a terrible time because it came out in theaters right before the world shut down, and then was one of those first movies that did debuted with like a $20 rental price, and people freaked out like, oh my God, who would ever pay $20 to rent a movie? And then I thought about it like, okay, but I'd pay like $40 to go see it at the theater, or I could pay $20 to watch it at home with subtitles and the ability to pause it. So like, this is a no-brainer. So we did it a bunch during the pandemic, honestly.
I just think it's really forgettable. It's a totally fine movie. Looks good. Kind of paint by numbers. I could maybe tell you 2 or 3 scenes from it. It's really hard to remember, but I liked it enough that I gave it 3.5 stars, but I remember it so little that it's my number 21.
Number 18, the recently mentioned Bug's Life. I really like A Bug's Life. It came out around the same time as Ants. I can't remember if people get those confused still or if one kind of reigns over the other, but I like them both. I think Bug's Life is very good. I think the voice work in it is pretty good. It's, really early in Pixar's run. It was, that was just their second movie. Was it Toy Story and then Bug's Life? Yeah, so just their second movie. I still think it was pretty strong. I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember there being some good bits in it. The animation is really good. Characters are, some of those side characters, of course, what's his name? The fat caterpillar. He's really funny. Yeah, just a good movie. I like Bug's Life.
So I would say the animation doesn't look good. It probably did at the time, but doesn't
at the time
anymore.
For sure.
Yeah, I think the story's solid. Your Ants, Bugs Life reigns. The Pixar effect for one thing, the Woody Allen effect for another when it comes to Ants. This movie has been logged on Letterboxd 3 times more, over 1 million for A Bug's Life, 300,000 some for Ants. I like them both. But yeah, just kind of dated, but again, Dave Foley, so that's great. But then on the other hand, Kevin Spacey, it's not as great. Did I mention I gave it 3.5 stars. It's my number 19.
19, okay. So we're still pretty close.
Very close, yeah.
17 is another 4-star movie, and I think a good one to talk about in June. Luca, which is another one that skipped theaters until this year, actually. Didn't debut on Disney Plus and didn't drop in theaters until this year. Didn't play anywhere near me, so I didn't get a chance to see it in a theater ever. But I think it's very good. It's an interesting story, interesting location for Pixar, using a real location. Is kind of different for them. But yeah, Luke, another one. I haven't seen it since the first time watched it, but it's very good. It's a good story. It's good. I like Luca.
This is the first one that I have, the second because Cars 2, but this one I have rated quite a bit higher than you. I mean, I have it rated at 4 stars, which is the same, but it's my number 12.
Nice.
I think Luca is excellent. I called it a Studio Ghibli movie at 1.5 speed.
Yeah.
I think it's the closest thing that Pixar has done to replicating the feeling that Miyazaki and Takahata are able to do with their movies. Maybe a little bit more towards the Takahata side, although magical like the Miyazaki side. I just think it's really great. I like it a lot. And I think Luca is forgotten. In fact, today I was trying to write down all the Pixar movies by hand through just memory, and Up and Luca were the two that I forgot, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Luca is excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree. My wife has actually never seen it, so we've been talking about watching it just because it's been a while since I've seen it, and she's never did it, so need to cross it off that list.
I mean, you could tell her it's just like it's Call Me by Your Name plus Ponyo.
Oh yeah, well, sold. So we're getting into number 16 here, and that's going to be the well-trodden Inside Out 2, which we spoke about at great length. I have that at number 16, which is a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, I have it at number 13, which is
good. We're still pretty close there.
I mean, it's weird that mine is higher than yours.
It is weird because I liked it more than you.
More than me, which means that from now, for the next chunk, I have these higher movies rated that you liked more than I did. Clearly, it means you like Pixar more than I do.
Yes. On the whole, I'd like to see the average, actually. Maybe I'll look at that after we get done recording. Like, see the average. Like, I'll look at your list and see, like, what your average rating is for each film versus, like, what my average rating is, because I bet mine's higher.
It is, for sure, because ratings. I have 3 2.5-star movies. You only have 1. Yeah. And my 4-star movies don't start till 12.
My 4 stars, where did they start? Way back at, my 4 stars started at 20.
Well, there you have it.
That'll do it, yeah. I guess mystery solved, yeah.
All right, so what's next?
15 is my last 4-star movie, is Ratatouille, which is just great. I love Patton Oswalt in this. I love, who's the bad guy?
Anton Ego.
Yeah, Anton Ego. I love Anton Ego. He's a great villain. Ratatouille is just a lot of fun. And I think now, too, when we think of Ratatouille, we also think of Ratatouille from Everything Ever All at Once. So Ratatouille has also given us that. So it's the movie that has continued to give over the years. I think the score also is really, really good, as they are for a lot of Pixar movies. But I think this one is really, really unique to the setting, of course, in France and where they are. It's actually one that stands out, I think, as really, really good. And I love Patton Oswalt. I mean, he's a great voice. He's perfect for the character. Yeah, it's really strong.
I gave it 3.5 stars. It's my number 18. People get really mad at me when I tell them that I think that Ratatouille is pretty good.
Yeah.
I've probably watched Ratatouille more than I've watched any other Pixar movie, simply because I keep looking for what I'm missing when people are like, it's the best Pixar. I know multiple people who this is their favorite animated movie, not just Pixar.
Well, that's wrong. I'm
a big food guy, and I just don't connect that much with this movie. And I love Patton Oswalt. What are you gonna do? It's like Blue Velvet for us, right? It's like we're not getting there with.
And I think Jeff Richardson would be okay with me mentioning that he remembers being overwhelmed or underwhelmed by Blue Velvet as well. So we're not alone in that club.
I think we may have a guest coming on the podcast soon who is also somewhat underwhelmed by Blue Velvet. So
great, we are not alone.
We're not alone. There are dozens of us.
There are dozens of us. Good. All right, now I'm going to get a little controversial with a couple of my 4.5 stars. I think we're going to fight some more. Number 14, I have Toy Story 4. I love Toy Story 4, and I know it's not as good as the others, obviously, because it's the lowest Toy Story on the list. But this movie has Duke Kaboom, and it has Giggle McDimples, and Giggle McDimples is worth half a star.
I don't know who Giggle McDimples is. I can't remember who that character is.
Giggle McDimples is the little police officer. He's Officer Giggle McDimples.
Okay.
And it has Keanu Reeves, like, just having the time of his life as Duke Kaboom.
Okay, here's the thing with Toy Story 4. It's the same problem as with Inside Out 2. It is just a little bit more drab. The setting is not as interesting as a preschool because that's all like crazy purples and pinks and blues. An antique shop is just, it feels old. It feels musty. When we were on the Random Acts of Cinema podcast, Charlie talked about movies that smelled like an old man, and that setting in Toy Story 4 smells like an old man. The story is fine. The animation's unbelievable. Post the Lego movie with the different animation engine, the way that natural light is used is incredible. And Toy Story 4 makes great use of it. The playground scenes look amazing. But yeah, I don't know. I was bored. I liked it more the second time I watched it than the first, but not a lot more. I expected to be like pretty impressed with it the second time around, and I don't know. But it's funny you say that because I have it at 3.5 stars, but I only have it 3 slots below you. I have it at number 17.
Okay, not bad. Number 13, a movie I did rewatch this year, and I liked it just as much as I did the first time. I know it's one that you have lower, is I have Turning Red. I think it's an interesting story. I think it's one that it sounds like they're not going to be making anymore, because I just read recently where they're going back to making movies that are more universal and not so specific, meaning probably a lot of white people doing white people stuff.
Well, wait, it's really funny you say that, because that was what I took away from that article too.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess we're not getting Coco or Soul or Turning Red anymore. But
Right.
I was listening to the Big Picture podcast today, and they were talking about how The Incredibles was this really autobiographical movie from Brad Bird, who worked too much and didn't get enough time with his family. And I was like, so is that it too? Is mean like we won't get movies like The Incredibles, which were a superhero movie, but it happened to be about the personal experience of the director. Does that mean that all these movies are going to be made completely by committee now? Because that was another fear I had. Like, it could be even worse than just being racist.
Right. But then if you want to play devil's advocate and maybe be like, okay, but a movie like Soul, isn't that really universal? The existence of your soul and finding your true purpose, or like Inside Out, isn't that a universal experience for someone of that age? So I don't know, but it did definitely made me nervous to read that. It didn't read well.
No, not at all. On the bright side with Soul, with Soul, Pete Docter directed Soul, and now he is in charge of the studio. So,
I mean, if anybody to be in charge of it, he's probably the right guy.
Except he's given us this thing where he said they're not making autobiographical movies anymore.
Well, I guess we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, so so let me talk about Turning Red. Look, I don't have kids.
Which I do.
I can't connect to movies that are about girls, but I have noticed that things like Come On, Come On, not that that's about a girl, but about a guy and his nephew, and Eighth Grade, and Inside Out 2, and Turning Red, I know you like all of those movies more than I do. Even like After Sun, I know you like more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I do have a blind spot. Now, I don't want to say like I just don't get it, but it definitely resonates with me less. I have to admit there's a pattern, and it resonates with me less.
Well, I don't want to say that either. I don't want to like diminish it to that. To be like, well, you don't get it because you don't have kids. It's just a different taste, a different sensibility.
Right. I thought the kaiju thing was a little silly. It's an animated movie, so whatever. Things are going to become giants at the end, but
go nuts. And again, with my daughter right around that age, it did kind of resonate with us in our house. So we do like Turning Red. And again, I did watch it earlier this year. I rewatched Turning Red and Soul because they also debuted in theaters finally this year. And they didn't play in theaters, but I did take the opportunity to watch them at home just to rewatch. And I still like Turning Red, so I'm comfortable with it at number 13.
It's number 20 for me.
Oh, 20 for you. Okay. My number 12, speaking of Brad Bird, I have Incredibles 2 at number 12. Also a 4.5-star movie. I remember, again, really, really liking this. It was another Father's Day weekend movie in 2018, so my kid was like 6. Saw it with my friend. Actually, this is a funny story. I have a friend, my friend named Bob. I don't think you ever got to meet him, but you've heard me talk about him.
Bob Conklin?
Bob Conklin, yeah.
I know Bob.
He's not even on Facebook anymore, but even when he was on Facebook, he never had his birthday listed. So I would always forget his birthday. And I'm usually pretty good at remembering that stuff, but I would forget it year after year after year. I'd always forget and would remember a couple days later. Well, the year Incredibles 2 came out, his birthday is June 16th. So the year Incredibles 2 came out, I think it was a Friday, was the 15th. And then like Saturday, was the 16th, his birthday. I messaged him like, hey, Viv and I are going to Incredibles 2. Do you and your kids? And his kids are a couple years older than Viv, but they were still pretty young then. I was like, do you and your kids want to go see Incredibles 2 today? He's like, yeah, sure. We're not doing anything. Great. Came to the movies, hung out, had a nice time. Well, see you later. That was his birthday. I didn't even say anything or like occur to me at all, but you know what? At least I was thinking about him. So, that was nice. But I thought it was cool. I think there's a lot of really cool action sequences in it. I like Mrs. Incredible as the main character. I like Jack and Auntie Edna. I think that's fun. Yeah, I really enjoy Incredibles 2. I mean, Brad Bird is, I'm pretty in the bag for most of his stuff.
Yeah, I've talked about how much I like Brad Bird. I think Incredibles 2 is solid, not great. I think the Mrs. Incredible thing was cool. I thought the villain was really subpar. And I love Catherine Keener.
Same.
And I really like Bob Odenkirk. But the sudden heel turn, I mean, it wasn't sudden. She was the villain the whole time. The sudden reveal, none of that really worked. The last act of the movie, I think, is pretty poor, with the exception of the cool X-Men-esque everybody's using their powers on a cruise ship thing and like teaming up their powers and stuff. That was pretty cool. But I had this at 3.5 stars, number 15. It's right next to Monsters University and Toy Story 4. And I think that's a perfect place for it on my list because it's pretty much in line with those where I don't want to call them unnecessary sequels. They're not unnecessary. But they are sequels where I don't think the stories are fully baked. And if they are, maybe we need better bakers.
Fair. All right, now we're getting almost into the real good. I'm still in 4.5-star territory here, but I've got number 11 is Toy Story 2. The movie that was almost lost to like a clerical error of some sort. If you so you know this, yeah, you're not yeah. The movie was almost deleted, but the woman, she kept like an emergency backup or something like that. I mean, yeah, we almost didn't get Toy Story 2, and also that it was almost straight to DVD. Was the original idea for Toy Story 2, which back in those days, I mean, movies could still do, pretty decent business straight to DVD, but it certainly was not, that was a lesser, it was viewed as, as a lesser movie if you went straight to DVD back in those days versus nowadays movies that go straight to streaming. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean anything about their quality.
It was like the system that set up the straight to DVD and straight to VHS movies like Lion King 2 and Aladdin 2. Those were a totally different studio than the ones that made the originals. Like they were cash grabs. Some of them are solid, but they were cash grabs.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know if I buy that Toy Story 2 is going to be straight to DVD or video because of how expensive it was at the time to make these movies, these 3D animated movies. I mean, in 1999, even like Disney still hadn't made its first one. It came out the next year, Dinosaur. And Shrek hadn't come out yet, I don't think. I think that was 2000.
No, 2001 was Shrek, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it was still cutting edge. So I don't buy that Toy Story 2 was ever going to be straight to DVD. But yes, that story of them almost losing the movie is insane.
Can you imagine? Yeah. Can you imagine? I mean, what would have happened?
Well, it's funny because when I first saw Toy Story 2, I was like, I don't like this as much. I just didn't like the story as much. Then I started to watch more Westerns and just get a little bit more in line with like what 50s television was like and things like that. And when I rewatched the movie 2 years ago, it hit me just right. So I have it at 4.5 stars. Also, it's my number 9, so it's in my top 10.
Kelsey Grammer is great in it. The whole John Cusack as Jesse is a fantastic addition. I mean, it's great. It's an awesome sequel. It was hard to keep out of my top 10, but we'll see. I mean, we're about to not fight for a while because we're doing our top 10s here, and I might have peaked at yours. So yeah, we're about to agree a whole bunch here. My number 10 movie is Monsters, Inc., which, gosh, what a treat this movie is. I love it so much. Goodman and Billy Crystal are just the ideal team. I heard another story about this. I'm not sure if this one's true or not, too, but they had offered Buzz Lightyear to Billy Crystal originally, was the idea for Buzz Lightyear, and he turned it down, and then they offered it to Tim Allen. And for a while, Billy Crystal was upset because like, oh, man, that would have been great. I can't believe I turned that down. But then he ended up getting to be Mike Wazowski instead. And he's like, that's correct, and that's the natural order of things. And Tim Allen, of course, is a great Buzz Lightyear, and Billy Crystal, of course, is who else could be Mike Wazowski. The storyline with Boo is just wonderful. Steve Buscemi's a great villain. Roz is a great character. I'm not sure who does her voice, but it doesn't matter because it's super memorable. I mean, just remember like in Inside Out how she would have that triple dent gum commercial pop into her head every so often. I get that with put that thing back where it came from, or so help me. I mean, who doesn't? That's such a there's just so much to love about Monsters, Inc. What a great movie.
I can't believe you left out that James Coburn gave like an all-time voice performance.
Outstanding. Yeah, what a great performance.
Yeah, Bob Peterson is the voice of Roz. Just terrific stuff. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say than what you did. It's my number 11. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's maybe the tightest script of any Pixar movie. It just moves so perfectly.
And the doors, like that door sequence at the end is just unreal, babe. Yeah.
It's amazing. I will say the door sequence at the end really does put into stark contrast how the relay races and stuff in Monsters University just doesn't hit the same notes in your soul. And then there's nothing like what we got with Boo. There's nothing like that.
It's so sweet every time. It's
Chinatown, baby.
Absolutely. Number 9. I know you have this one a little higher than me, but I love it too. But Coco, just a great movie. I mean, the music is great. The story is moving. Just the relationships in it are terrific. The vocal work is great. The locales are great. The animation, looks like the character design, everything about it. It's just beautiful. Just a terrific movie all around.
I saw Coco with my buddy Rick. Actually, Rick, I haven't seen you in a while. If you're hearing this, we should hang out. And I remember as I'm watching it, it's near the end when the song comes on and Grandma Coco starts to come to. I remember holding back tears so hard that I was getting a headache. And out of the corner of my eye, I see Rick just like push a tear away. And that was all the permission I needed to start sobbing in the theater, which was funny because I had heard so many people going, but I needed to see Rick push his tear away. Yeah, it's my number 3. It's a 5-star movie. I think this movie's perfect. This is my favorite Gael Garcia Bernal performance, and it's a voice performance.
Have you seen The Book of Life though with him?
I don't think I have.
It's very cool. It's a similar themed movie, like a lot of Day of the Dead type stuff in it, but it's different too. Not as good as Coco, but it's also good. I think you would actually really like it. It's a movie that kind of got overshadowed.
So I think I avoided it because it came out not just near the same time as Coco, but Vivo came out around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, there's too much of this thing going on. And none of these are going to be as good as Coco.
And they're not. But you like Book of Life.
Oh, the songs in Coco are so good. Poco Loco and Remember Me.
Mm-hmm.
I know Remember Me in Spanish. Why do I know this? I don't know, but I know every word to it in Spanish.
Yeah, and it's one I haven't seen in a while, but I still have it at 4.5 stars, but I'm not going to begrudge anyone who has it at 5. I mean, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Keep going.
All right, number 8, I have Up, and we're into 5-star territory for me now. All the rest of these are 5-star movies for me. I have Up at 5 stars. This movie has been talked about to death. That opening sequence, that first 10 minutes or whatever, very, very different from anything Pixar had done up to that point. It's exceptional. It's just...
It wasn't that different. The beginning of Finding Nemo is insane.
Oh, yeah, that's true, but it wasn't with old people.
No, it was just with... It was just your mom getting killed.
Yeah, yeah, fish... different. But I think it took people off guard. I don't think people were necessarily expecting that right away. Anyway, I love Up. It's really great. The only thing that doesn't make sense is the age difference between Carl and the main villain at the end. Kind of weird. I think that's kind of a hole that can't be explained.
Well, I'll do my best to give it some text that's not in the movie. I think on that island, maybe he found other creatures that gave him long-lasting life.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. I mean, Kevin is a weird character.
Yeah. They're all weird.
And I love that it's named
Kevin.
Kevin.
It's weird.
Yeah, and I love Doug. I mean, Doug, who doesn't love Doug? One of the great characters. He's just a delight. Yeah, I love Up. I even love they had the little series like Doug Days came out on Disney Plus. Or these cute little shorts that had Doug and just Doug and Carl, and they were a delight. Yeah, Up is one I really enjoy.
Yeah, so Up's one that's grown on me as time goes by. When people say the movie falls off after the first 10 minutes, I always reply, then why did I cry so much the rest of the movie?
Right, yeah.
Why did that happen?
Yeah, get out of here.
Ed Asner, Christopher Plummer. You got Delroy Lindo doing a dog. I don't know how they got him to do that, but it's incredible.
Amazing. Yeah.
I think some of the third act doesn't work at all, actually, but I still have it at 4.5 stars, and it's my number 10, so it's in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Up is terrific.
Number 7 for me, Finding Nemo. Right from the beginning, they grab you right at the beginning and just punch you in the face with that scene where, like you said, he loses his mom. Spoiler alert for 21-year-old Finding Nemo. But again, you mentioned earlier, the animation is just extraordinary for this, and the level of research that I've read that the Pixar team went into to make sure that the details of the fish were accurate and the details of their habitats were accurate. 99% of the people going to that movie are going to have no idea if any of that is accurate or not. Even the Willem Dafoe character, apparently his species of fish does not like being captive. Like, that's the thing. They don't like, enclosed spaces. So of course he would be the leader of trying to get just like little things like that. I mean, nobody would know those things, but those are the kind of lengths that they were going to then with their movies. And there's just so much cool stuff. I mean, again, Willem Dafoe is in that. Albert Brooks. Ellen is really funny in this. Finding Nemo has earned every bit of its reputation. Great movie, holds up very well today.
Andrew Stanton is 50-50 when it comes to his directorial efforts. He made John Carter from Mars. He made Finding Dory, but he also made Finding Nemo, and he also made my favorite Pixar movie. So we stand for Stanton. This movie's amazing. It's basically just an Albert Brooks movie, and you throw Ellen in it, and then how can you go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
How can you go wrong? You make it an Ellen movie and throw Albert Brooks in it. You reverse the formula when you get Finding Dory. Finding Nemo is great. Fish aren't food. Terrific.
Where does it rank for you?
Oh, sorry. Good question. It is my number 5 stars.
Number 6 for me is The Incredibles. We've talked about this already too, but yeah, amazing movie. Craig T. Nelson is perfect. Holly Hunter is perfect. Jason Lee is the villain in this. He's great. The animation is just incredible. Let me do that. Of course, Samuel L. Jackson, one of his great roles, one of his dozens and dozens of great roles. Really cool superhero movie. And again, feels kind of different than a lot of the other stuff in the Pixar canon. I think feels very much like a Brad Bird movie. Like a lot of the stuff, can feel like it was maybe directed like, whoop, was this a Pete Docter or an Andrew Stanton? I can see either way, but like, you see The Incredibles or like stuff. Yeah, that's, you can see that's a Bird.
For sure. It's very slick. It's very like the Rocketeer vibes, or for Brad Bird, like the Iron Giant vibes. It's got that Art Deco vibe that he really likes, and it works really well. It's basically a James Bond movie and also the only good Fantastic Four movie. That's been said by everyone ever, but it's true. Terrific. From now on, I'm just calling all these terrific. Sorry about that. It's a 4.5-star movie. It is my number 8, I want to say, because that's accurate.
My number 5 is the one that started it all, Toy Story. Again, what more can you say about Toy Story? It was the first of its kind, started one of the most successful franchises ever. Tim Allen and Tom Hanks, one of the best animated duos ever. Woody and Buzz, everybody knows Woody and Buzz. And it's a really great story. It's a really, again, kind of a unique story. I don't, other than that Robin Williams movie, Toys. I don't remember that many movies about toys before.
That movie has nothing in common with this movie. It has much more in common with Small Soldiers.
I know. That movie has a lot more LL Cool J in it, too.
Yeah, but also Michael Gambon.
The second Dumbledore. Dumbledore 2.
Second Dumbledore, yeah. So it's got a lot of Michael Gambon. It's also got Joan Cusack. So they share Joan Cusack, the Toy Story franchise.
So same universe, really. Yeah.
Toy Story is the best. It's so had to be a certain kind of great to launch an animation house. You've got, what do you have? Prince of Egypt launched DreamWorks. Snow White launched, really Mickey Mouse and Steamboat Willie launched Disney, but Snow White launched Disney feature-length films. And you got Toy Story launching Pixar, and with good reason. Yes, the dog looks dated, the evil dog. Yes, the human faces are bad, but the movie is so efficient and goes so hard. Every scene, I could play through the entire movie scene by scene in my head, and I can't say that about pretty much any other movie.
And it's funny, too. Like, it's just funny. There's laugh-out-loud humor in it. And
for sure. It is another 5-star for me. It is my lowest-ranked 5-star at number 7.
Number 4 for me, one that I recently rewatched a couple months ago, is Soul. I think Soul is a really great movie. Again, came out at a bad time, kind of right during the pandemic. Didn't play in theaters until this year, and even then was a limited release. But I think Soul is really a beautiful movie. I think Jamie Foxx really, really plays that part well. Tina Fey is good too. I think they're good together, but I just think it's a really beautiful story, about somebody, figuring out really, what their life is about and what they want it to be, and, what they want, how they want to be remembered, I guess. Like, I get a little emotional thinking about Soul. Like, Soul really did it for me. Soul really got to me. And I think there's a lot of really visually cool things in there, like when he's remembering, of course, that's a really famous sequence where, he's looking back at all the things in his life and you're kind of remembering it. I think there's a lot of good things about Soul. And, I think Jamie Foxx is just tremendous in it.
I would say Tina Fey, comes close to doing too much and then settles into doing just the right amount.
Yep.
The movie's absolutely gorgeous. I saw it again during the pandemic, like everyone else did, on Disney Plus, and gave it 4.5 stars. And then 2 years go by, and I thought, maybe I overrated it. I don't really remember that much about it. Watched it again, and now it's seared into my memory, bumped it up to 5. Didn't underrate it at all. Said at the time I would pay to see it in the theater in a heartbeat. Then it came out in the theater, and I did not pay to see it in the theater. So I feel kind of dumb about that. But I also said, I hope Pixar can achieve this level of excellence again. And for my money, they haven't since. So I'm still hoping for that. Maybe Elio will give us that. But Soul is my number 4. My number 4.
Same. Yep. And that's another where the score is just unbelievable. You've got John Batiste doing part of it, and then the Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross combo doing other part of it. Either one of them will do amazing score on their own, and then they're each doing parts of it. Outstanding.
One of, I think, the underrated aspects of Soul is the New Zealand contingent the New Zealand / British contingent that play all the angels in the afterlife. So you've got Alice Braga. And then you've got Rachel House, who's been made famous from all the Taika Waititi movies. And Richard Ayoade is just the funniest guy.
Oh, yeah, I love him. All right, now we're in the really rarefied air. We're into our top 3. My number 3 is the original Inside Out, which, again, I had to watch just about a week ago before I saw the new Inside Out. And as we mentioned before, the first one is a 5-star classic, just a beautiful movie. The visual representations of the emotions are so cool and so interesting. I can't I don't know how much I'm going to be able to talk about it without getting, getting real emotional. I mean, I saw it when I first came out. My daughter was about 3. It was 2015. Yes, my daughter was about 3, and I just sobbed. I'm sitting in the theater by myself. I wasn't taking her to movies quite yet, so I was just sobbing, just sitting there by myself, like, oh my god, she's going to be this age someday. And then now, by the time Inside Out 2 comes out, I'm like, oh my god, she's this age now. So it's just, there's just a lot of feels in that movie for me. But I mean, Amy Poehler and Phyllis Smith together, really the two sides of the coin are just so great. And then you've got, like we mentioned, Bill Hader and Louis Black and Mindy Kaling doing the other voices. Everyone's just perfect in it. It's just a really, really unbelievably great movie.
I just read my review of it. It's my number 6, 5 stars. And what I said was, remember when Pixar knew how to slow down and just let us live in an environment for a while? And that's, I think, another thing that makes Inside Out so much better than Inside Out 2. Because there are moments in Inside Out 2 where they just like boom, ba-boom, 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 moving from set piece to set piece to set piece to set piece. And in Inside Out, you get a lot of stopping and letting sadness be sad and joy having to reckon with why sadness is sad. And in Inside Out 2, you're bouncing between anxiety, joy, Riley, anxiety, joy, Riley, boom, boom, boom. And it keeps moving, it keeps moving. And in the end, we don't really get much of a catharsis from Joy because the mistake she made, bumping everything to the back of the mind, she doesn't have to reckon with it at all because she accidentally fixes the problem by blowing up the mountain. And not really thinking about what the consequences of that are. Turns out the consequences are good. Whereas in Inside Out, the original, she has to make a lot of active decisions to do the right thing. And in Inside Out 2, there's just like it's stretched a little too thin and moves a little too fast. But Inside Out 1 does not have that problem. It's a 5-star film.
Yeah. And Inside Out 1 also has something else that Inside Out 2 doesn't have, and that's Bing Bong.
Bing Bong. Yeah, for sure.
We love you, Bing Bong.
R.I.P.
And number 2, this is so hard.
Do you want me to talk about it instead?
Well, it's hard to do. It's hard to rank them. Number 2 and 1. 2 and 1 is really, really hard for me, and I can't argue it either way.
I can. I would say that I'm going to argue it the way that you have it. The way that you have it is right.
Is right?
Yeah. Don't you have it the same way I have it?
No, I have it the opposite way.
Oh, you're a moron. No, fair enough. They're both amazing. Go on.
They are both. My number 2 is WALL-E, which has everything about WALL-E is amazing. I don't know what can possibly be said about WALL-E that hasn't already been said. The animation is beautiful. WALL-E is just the best character. His relationship with Eva is just the sweetest thing. I mean, when they're dancing in the cosmos together, and then when they're watching Hello Dolly and he just wants to reach out and hold her hand. I mean, that's so great. And then you've got Jeff Garlin as the ship captain. Just so many great things happening in WALL-E. There's kind of the two separate stories of, what WALL-E and Eva and what they're doing, but then, also what's happening to humanity at the same time. It's a big movie. It's probably like the biggest movie Pixar's ever made, just thematically.
Yeah, it's about the continuation of human life and what that's going to mean, like what it's going to take. And I love the resolution for the movie that they come home. I once listened to, I think it was on NPR, a conversation between Werner Herzog and Cormac McCarthy, two of the most well-known nihilists in American history. Well, in global history, because Werner Herzog is not American.
Not American.
And they talked about what it would mean to have human life extend off of Earth and how going to Mars is silly because we already have Earth, so why make a hostile planet tame when we have a planet that's tame? And trying to leave the galaxy is madness because people on an intergenerational flight somewhere there'd be inbreeding, there'd be madness, it wouldn't work. So for the resolution of WALL-E to be, right, we're coming home. And now it's time to treat this differently because we can think about this differently. It was beautiful. The WALL-E character is amazing. Hello Dolly's integration into the movie is perfect. The relationship between WALL-E and Eve is really sweet. It's my number 1. I kind of don't want to talk about Toy Story 3 after this because I don't know as much, but I will. Oh, man, it's perfect. So it's the other Stanton joint, and it's the only movie that's making me want to watch John Carter because I have so much love for WALL-E that it's like might as well wrap up this guy's filmography. But oh man, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's the best one. It's the second highest rated one on Letterboxd. Ratatouille's number 1. That's insane. That's like categorically crazy.
That's just certifiably insane. I mean, that's wrong in a lot of ways. There's just something about that little guy. Just gets me every time. I have a little toy. He's about this big. I found him at like a Dollar General or something. I have a little WALL-E. He sits on my desk at work. So I have him near. I have them near me. But you know what else I have right next to Wally is I have a little like a little Matchbox car, a little Pizza Planet truck. So there you go.
All right. Well, talk about Toy Story 3.
Talk about Toy Story 3, and this is another one, man. It's my number one. It's 5 stars. I think it's amazing. At the time, I was managing a movie theater in Omaha, Nebraska, and it was my last week there. I was about to be transferred to Montgomery, Alabama. So we were opening Toy Story 3 that weekend, and we used to do what we called quality screenings, which was basically just a fancy way of saying we get to watch the movie early because we work at the movie theater. So we were watching it like on a Wednesday night before the Friday opening, and it was me and what was I? Gosh, I was my late 20s, I think. Late 20s when it came out. Yeah, 2010. So I was in my late 20s, and there were, a bunch of kids that were younger than me, like some, late teens, early 20s people, a couple people that were older than me. There's probably 12 or 15 of us there that night. My goodness, man, when they start going down into the incinerator, they had a group of people who should damn well know better that they're not going to kill every single main character in a kid's movie all at once. We all bought it. We all fell for it, and it still gets me every single time that it happens. I think it's one of the greatest scenes like I've ever seen in a movie, just that it can do that to you every single time. Where it was like said, oh yeah, Toy Story, they just incinerate everyone at the end. Like, how dumb are you? Like, of course they're not going to do that. But the fact that they can get you, and that first time you're like, wait, and you start like looking around, are they? Like, is this really going to happen? And just, Woody staying strong till the end until Buzz finally has, only Buzz can be the one to, reach his hand out to him, tell him it's going to be okay. And, we're all, as long as we all go together. But then the stupid little aliens grab him, with the claw, the perfect callback, too, like that they had set up, 2 movies earlier. It's just great. They had this great ending, they get out of there and you're like, oh man, what a great ending. You're so relieved and and then they have the epilogue, which is also perfect with Andy giving his toys to Bonnie and with Woody. And when he pulls him back like there, I mean, I feel that hard, I feel that hard every time. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, any other day, maybe tomorrow, or next time I watch Wall-E, I'll be like, nope, that's better than Toy Story 3. Either way, like those are 1 and 2. I think, I'd have a hard time imagining they can ever top those 2.
When they announced Toy Story 4, I remember saying to you, I was furious. I'm like, they had a perfect end to the trilogy. And you were like, movies are movies. They keep making movies. Shut up. And I agree with you in principle. I think you were wrong in this case. Toy Story 5 might change my mind. I doubt it because, just like you said, Andy passing Woody to Bonnie, taking it back, and then giving her Woody after explaining how important Woody is. Now I'm getting a little choked up thinking about it. It's not going to top that scene. It's not going to top that as a cathartic ending. And I'm sorry, but like Woody going off on his own with the wilderness toys is not as good because that's not real. That's not like that doesn't happen. But people passing things on does. So yeah, it's my number 2. It's another 5-star movie. Yeah, it's great. I wish they'd ended it there and come up with something new. But I like the characters. I'm not furious anymore. I had the same thing when they announced Furiosa. I'm like, we don't need a Mad Max sequel. And I liked Furiosa quite a bit. So
yeah, it's pretty great.
So yeah, Toy Story's it. All right, well, that's our Pixar ranking. Hope you enjoyed. We'll be back next week with our regularly scheduled program, talking about some movies from the late 50s by our boy Orson Welles and Elvis Presley / Michael Curtiz. Lots of good stuff coming up on next week's episode. Thank you for joining us on Never Did It.